For 600 years, the Muslims had been the masters of the Hindu. Why was partition accepted by the Congress? Gandhi described partition was totally a sin. Dr. Ambedkar said every Indian must read a book on Pakistan. If not mine, that is Pakistan or the partition of India, then other, if we or they, to help his country to steer a clear path. We know that the joy of our country's independence from colonial rule 1947 was tarnished by the violence and the brutality of the partition. Partition generated memories, hatreds, stereotypes, and identities that still continue to shape the history of the people on both sides of the border. Why and how did partition happen? Some scholars see partition as a culmination of the communal policies that started developing in the opening decade of the 20th century. Though we can see the seeds of the communalism when they partitioned Bengal in 1905. It was totally planned. It was based on the communalism. They partitioned Bengal because they wanted to destroy the unity of these two communities, Muslim and Hindus. The demand for Pakistan did not arise in a vacuum. It was a product of certain political developments which took place after 1937. The P-37 continued to intrigue historians and torment people of both sides of the border to this day. A hard-earned prize freedom was won after long, glorious struggle, but bloody, tragic partition rent asunder the fabric of the emerging free nation. Two questions arise. Why did British finally quit? It's a great question, I'm repeating. Why did the British finally quit? We have seen, as far as the history is concerned, when some of the economic historians produce the theories, the credit goes to the grand old man of India, Dadabhai Naoroji, who produced this theory, drain of wealth. Why was partition accepted by the Congress? This is the second question. The imperialist answer is that independence was simply the fulfillment of Britain's self-appointed mission to assist Indian people to self-government. Partition was unfortunate consequence of the age-old Hindu-Muslim rift of the two communities. Failure to agree on how and whom power was to be transferred. As in the morning session we saw, after they went, the first governor appointed by the Indian government was the Lord Mountbatten. Have a look on the army, police, and bureaucracy. The same system has been followed, ICS, Indian Civil Services. The partition of India was primarily the result of the persistent efforts of the Muslim League from 1940 onwards to obtain a separate homeland for the Muslim. Here I'll talk about the tussle between the two organization, that is the Muslim League and the Congress. The Muslim League has asserted, what was the Congress done to annoy the Muslims so much? Question mark. The Muslim League has asserted that under the Congress regime, the Muslims were actually tyrannized and oppressed. The Congress agreed to include. अब कांग्रेस ने एक नई शर्त रखी है, किसके सामने? मुस्लिम लीग के सामने. The Congress agreed to include Muslim in their cabinets provided they resigned from their parties, joined the Congress and signed the Congress pledge. This was resented by the Muslims. The Congress is not prepared to share power with a member of community who does not have allegiance to the Congress. In the next paragraph, I'll talk about the law and the language. Law and the language played an important role. Have a look when they wanted to enact a book on the Indian Penal Code or Indian Criminal Procedure Code. We have the book which has been produced by the Britisher, that was the Code of the Gentoo Laws. The law and language also played an indispensable role in the context of the partition. Every change, executive, administrative, or legal, introduced by the British has inflicted a series of blows upon Muslim community. The Muslim rulers of India had allowed the Hindus to retain their law in civil matter. Side by side came the abolition in 1837 of Persian as the official language as the court and general administration, and the substitution of the English and the vernacular as place of Persian. Then came to the abolition of the Qazis, who during the Muslim rule administered the Shariat. In their places were appointed law officers. In their places were appointed law officers, judges, who might be any religion but got the right to interpreting Muslim law, and whose decision became binding on them. So we can see the hostility as far as the religion was concerned between the two communities. There was severe blow to the Muslim. As a result, the Muslim found their prestige gone, their laws replaced, their language shelved, and their education shorn of its monetary value. For 600 years, the Muslims had been the masters of the Hindu. We have studied, I think, from our school days about the Delhi Sultanate and the Mughal period. So we can start from roughly from 1200 to 1706 at the death of Aurangzeb. Their rule was on the peak. From masters to fellow subject was degradation enough, but a change from the status of fellow subjects to that of subjects of the Hindus is really humiliation. That there are factors, administrative, linguistic, or cultural, which are the predisposing causes behind these demands for separation, is a fact which is admitted and understood by all. Then the communities. The census listed various communities, caste and communities in India, and also accounted them. The colonial practice of census and surveys thus encouraged the idea of enumerated communities and led to the concept of majority and minority in different parts of the country. Fuzzy identities were replaced by hard singular identities, often forcing groups with complex and multiple identities to choose one. The British Orientalist scholarship played a role in the development of ideas about the peculiarities of the Indian society. Other historians or sociologists, secular or Marxist, talks about the partition. The critics of the Gandhi that the use of a religious issue like Khilafat was a dangerous since it encouraged extraterritorial loyalties and pan-Islamic tendencies among Indian Muslims. It has been argued that Gandhi's collaboration with Ali brothers led to Muslim mass mobilization within India for achieving objects within India. Secular and Marxist historians consider the use of religion in politics a double-edged weapon, and therefore have regarded this strategy as a fraught with dangerous consequences. Then we can see the acts passed by the British government after 1900. Three acts were important: the Morley-Minto reforms, the Matengu-Chamsey reform, and the Government of India Acts. Now, we can have a debate as far as the Indian partition is concerned. The reasons why British decided to grant Indian independence have been subject of lively debate. Official sources presented it is the culmination of process going back to the Government of India Act of 1919, a process by which the British carefully prepared India for independence. Some historians, including Suma Sarkar's Modern India and Anita Inder Singh's The Origins of the Partition of India, have challenged this view, arguing that Indian independence was never a long-term goal of the British, and that the Government of India Act 1919 and 1935 were designed not to prepare the way for independence, but to postpone it. Independence was not a gift from the British. It was the hard-won fruit of struggle and sacrifice. Other historians have suggested that India was no longer of any value to Britain, as I have just talked about the drain theory. Instead of being a source of profit, it was now a drain on British resources. The aim of the government was therefore to get out of India in a way that did not look too much like a humiliation, and that kept India within the British financial network and Commonwealth. Some writers taken a middle view. Howard breasted decolonization in India, Britain's positive role, defended the Labour government against accusation that it made its policy up as went wrong, and ended up running away from the problem. He showed that the Labour Party had drawn up clear policy of withdrawal from India's before the Second World War. And this was discussed by the party leader Clement Attlee, Jawaharlal Nehru, and the Indian National Congress leader in 1938. Why was the partition of India necessary? We have seen, I have just talked about the religious hostilities between the two communities, Hindu and Muslim. Of course, the cultural antipathy also played an important role. Religious hostility between the Hindus and Muslims, this was the main problem. The cultural antipathy between the two communities were some of the reasons. Attempts to draw up compromise solution acceptable to both Hindus and Muslims failed. The Muslims have openly declared that they do not want to have any central government in India. They have given their reasons in the most unambiguous terms. They have succeeded in bringing into being 5 provinces which are predominantly Muslim in population. I'll talk about the two as talked by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. The Muslim case for Pakistan is sought to be justified on the following 2 points. Number 1, what the Muslims are asking for the creation of administrative areas which are ethnically more homogeneous. Number 2, the Muslims want these homogeneous administrative areas which are predominantly Muslim to be constituted into separate parts. Because the Muslims by themselves constitute a separate desire to have a national home. Because part B, experience show that the Hindu want to use their majority to treat the Muslim as though they were second-class citizens in an alien state. Now we can have a look on the CR formula. Again, this was a bargain between the two communities, Hindu and Muslim. As far as this formula introduced by C. Rajagopalachari, no political settlement, no communal settlement, it is a strategy on which the formula proceeds. The formula did not offer a solution. This formula, CR formula, did not provide any kind of solution. It invited Jinnah to enter into a deal. It was a bargain. The formula did not offer a solution. If you help us in getting independence, we shall be glad to consider your proposal for the Pakistan. This is the quotation by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. I do not, means Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, from where Mr. C. Rajagopalachari got the idea that this was the best means of getting independence. It was a way of one party drawing another party into its net by offering communal privileges a bait. The CR formula made communal settlement an article for sale. The partition of India was one of the most cataclysmic events in the modern Indian history. The transfer of power to India and Pakistan in August 1947 was the first major act of decolonization by the British, with far-reaching consequences on their internal status. Partition symbolized the successful culmination of the Muslim League's campaign for sovereign Pakistan, while it was the antithesis of the Congress wish to achieve a secular, united, democratic, and independent India. So Gandhi described partition was totally a sin. Gandhi started by saying that no partition of India is moral, wrong, and a sin to which he will never be a party. This is a strange argument. India is not only the country faced with issue of partition of frontiers based on natural and historical factors to those based on the national factor. We have seen the role of the British. Have a look on the world history. North Korea versus South Korea, East Germany versus West Germany, Iran, Syria, and India and Pakistan. Poland has been partitioned 3 times. And no one can be sure that there will be no more partition of Poland. There are very few countries in Europe which have not undergone partition during the last 150 years. This shows that partition of a country is neither moral nor immoral. It is unmoral. It is social, political, or military question. Sin has no play in it. Just I'm concluding. The partition of India was the product of complex processes and was the outcome of several factors and the role of the British. The Muslim League and the Indian National Congress for the division of the subcontinent. Partition was neither inevitable nor the product of sheer chance. It was not the fulfillment of destiny or the logical outcome of the two-nation theory, nor was it simply an accident that was produced by single round decision or a failure of the judgment. It was the period 1937-1947 that saw quickening of the pace of political development, but there were underlying differences in the levels of economic and social development of Hindu and Muslim communities of the subcontinent that played a role. Conflicts based on class and culture got intertwined with new forms of politics and concepts of democracy and nation states during the closing years of the colonial rule. Thank you so much.